Today is October 11th, and we are Project Voice. We are changing the segment up today. Usually we podcast from Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, but today we are in the office of Michael Jenkins, graduate assistant and co-advisor of Project Voice. So today we're going to continue our roundtable discussion from last week about the differences in age and generational gaps. So we're going to turn it over to Chris Buchanan. He's going to kind of lead us in. Chris.
Okay, so when you say, let me first off by asking, when you say generation gap, what is the first words that come to your mind? What do you think of? Anybody?
The distance chronologically between one generation and another. It's an age definition. There are also cultural generation gaps in terms of artistic expression. There are also philosophical generation gaps, how people, one generation sees the world as compared to another. But generally speaking, I think my definition would include some kind of description of age difference between one group and another.
Okay. So when you think of, going off of what you just said, so like, what would be maybe something, can you give maybe an example of maybe a positive and negative side of the generation gap?
Yeah, I can come up with a lot of them, as a matter of
Feel
fact.
free.
But I think, obviously, one of the most provocative has to do with music. And, of course, the negative aspect is that the older generation sees the younger generation music as not music. It's noise. But the same people who are making that criticism now in their 50s and 60s had their music criticized. With rock, rhythm and blues, hip-hop, by the generation before them who were more gospel-oriented, more big band-oriented. So, it goes both ways. You find yourself in one part of life being the victim of criticism of what you like, in this case music. And if you live long enough, you find yourself on the other side of that coin, criticizing the generation after you. What you're listening to is not worth a hill of beans. So I think that would be an example of a positive and a negative. How on one side you see yourself being vilified by another generation for what you like, but then you get older and then you find yourself on the other side of that coin and you're doing the vilifying.
Exactly.
So instead of defending, you're criticizing.
I agree with that. So like, if you guys notice, more so to the younger crowd, have you noticed, how would you describe the tension between our generation and the generation before us, or the generation before them? With that, what I mean by that is, have you ever sat down and talked with, maybe your parents or someone of your parents' age, or, whether it be an uncle or an auntie, and y'all talked about, you hear the people say, oh, kids these days, what are some of the things that you experience?
Why don't you specify the age differences? Because
Okay,
I'm
so
31 and what, you're 20?
Yeah.
So there's a difference between Mr. Conley and myself, because there's an age difference, and there's an age difference between you and I too.
Correct. So yeah, let's start off with the parents, or Mike's generation. Mike, when were you born?
1982.
82?
Yes.
Okay, see, and I'm a 92 baby, 90s was the best decade, by the way, so I throw that out there.
Yes, the best.
So, okay, Mike, what are some things that you experience coming up where, like, you see kids my age, and kids younger,
the big thing was, to me, besides, because the music, I grew up in hip-hop. Like my grandmother used to tell me how she would get upset with my mother because she listened to P-Funk and be loud. So, she would just be like, so then my mother started getting on me because I listened to rap. My parents didn't let me listen to rap, so I had to sneak it. So, because they said it was too much cursing in it. So I snuck it. And I remember one time, not to get off subject, I snuck something, I left it playing, and my father heard it. So he broke the CD, and he, I was disciplined.
I've done that.
I was disciplined. I was like 16 at the time. I was mad. So I think the biggest thing is social media, because I find and I don't track students on social. Usually it's an easy way to connect, because the fact of, if I send emails, people tend not to check them. But I'll say, all right, well, if I can send you a quick email, then a hot message, as we call in student affairs, it goes right to your phone. Like if I say, Chris said, come to my office or come to this event. But the thing is, like, so much people put their business on social media. I've seen so much, and I've had to correct people on their language on social media. I'm not going to name who. He has a blue shirt on anyway. But it's the difference in like how so much of your life is on there. Like I have a Twitter. I think I have maybe 35 followers. I don't really tweet anything except messages to do this, do this. Can you do this? Can you do thank you? So I think that's the biggest difference because I don't know. It's just different. Like it kind of just that's the aspect. And I don't want to sound like the old fogey guy. Like oh well, my dad we walked this and this amount of schools. It's not that much older than everyone else, you know. But I think the social media is the biggest thing.
And
So,
I mean, I agree with that, social media and technology, because, you know, I feel like there's this, speaking of Twitter, there's a page on Twitter, and it's called The 90s Kids. And the @ name is @90sbabies. And it tweets, you know, things from the 90s that we don't have today. And it's like, kids of this generation, one of the things they tweeted was kids of this generation would never know what this is. And when you click on it, it's a picture of a floppy disk.
yeah.
And, you know, you think about, like, my little brothers have no idea what a floppy disk is. You know, my little sister, she won't know, you know, she probably will never use a floppy disk,
No.
you know, because of technology,
That,
you know.
the
that-
3x5 disc
Yeah.
with the big fans.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I remember having the fan, the ones, the big fans. So
Right.
Yeah, see, you know, and
Using
it's
at
like,
church.
Yeah.
exactly, I remember we used to have to use them, you know, in elementary, but then right away, you know, it seemed like as soon as I learned how to use a floppy disk, then they taught me how to use a flash drive, you know, and it was gone. Same with the CD player. You know, the CD, you know, got rid of the cassette, you know, which in return got rid of the records, you know, and now we can just download everything onto an iPod. Instead of going out and buying, you know, a CD, we can just, you know, go get the songs. You got thousands and thousands of songs on one small little device. So, you know, I definitely think, like, technology, you know, played a role in that, and especially social media. Not to get off topic, but there was a rapper named Wale. And he said in one of his songs, his newest album, he said the TV or the radio killed the TV, or TV, yeah, the radio killed the TV and slit the newspaper's throat. That was his analogy, and what he was saying was how, you know, as time goes on, you know, we started off reading newspaper, then we got to the TV. Not too many people read anymore. You know, that's what the news is for. Then people stopped listening or stopped, you know, watching TV and was listening to the radio, like Cyrus, you know, all these Pandora, you know, all these internet things that we got now that we have access to, you know, and it's, you know, becoming more technology based. Like my grandma always said, you know, she's like, you know, no matter what you do, you can always go out and get your degree.